huge job losses, even as President William Rutte defends the controversial law. South African authorities are recruiting traditional healers in an attempt to tackle the stigma and reluctance of people to test for HIV. And meet South Africa's first black woman to lead and own an all-black orchestra. Watch World of Africa at these times, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Raisha Sehgal. Today is the 10th International Yoga Day. The theme this year is Yoga for Self and Society, emphasizing on yoga's impact on personal well-being and that of the society as well. Well, Shivan, yoga is indeed a gift by India to the world. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be leading the Yoga Day celebrations in Srinagar today. We'll get you all the updates and all the latest from Srinagar on that.
Well, of course, we will be tracking that closely. Also on World DNA today, on the war front in West Asia, new tensions have emerged this week between US President Joe Biden's administration and Prime Minister Netanyahu over his criticism of US withholding weapon deliveries. Now, the White House has described the criticism as vexing and disappointing. We are going to be tracking that discord as well. Let's get you started with the headlines. This is World DNA.
Israel will not leave Gaza until all hostages are returned, says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after meeting officials from the Israeli security agency Shin Bet.
The temporary US pier aimed at boosting aid shipments to Gaza has been reattached to the coast and deliveries of humanitarian assistance have resumed, says the Pentagon.
Outgoing Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte clinches the race to become the next head of NATO after sole challenger Romanian President Klaus Iohannis pulled out.
Former US President Donald Trump will have the final word in next week's first presidential debate after a coin toss. Biden will stand on the right side of the stage from the viewer's perspective, and Trump will be on the left.
Over 1,000 Hajj pilgrims die amid temperatures approaching 52 degrees Celsius in Mecca. Saudi officials say they sent away unregistered pilgrims, but many could have taken part without access to cooler spaces.
Tenth International Day of Yoga. On International Yoga Day, Indian Prime Minister is all set to lead celebrations in Srinagar.
Donald Sutherland, the enigmatic Canadian actor whose lengthy career encompassed movies including The Dirty Dozen and The Hunger Games, has died at the age of 88.
Spain booked their spot in the last 16 of the European Championships with a 1-0 victory over defending champions Italy.
Well, new tensions have emerged this week between US President Joe Biden's administration and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Well, of course, the row is over Netanyahu's criticism of US withholding weapon deliveries. Now, following the comments made by Prime Minister Netanyahu, the White House has described the criticism as vexing and disappointing, despite America's continuous support to Israel in its fight against Hamas militants and other threats they are facing in the region.
Previously, White House Press Secretary also said that with the exception of one particular shipment of munitions, there are no pauses in other shipments. Here, the White House Press Secretary was referring to shipment of 2,000-pound bombs that Washington has said is under review because of concerns about the use in densely populated areas in Gaza.
Now, with tensions between the two allies increasing by the day, according to a US official, two top advisors to Israeli Prime Minister, Israel's National Security Advisor and Israel's Minister for Strategic Affairs will meet with White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. On the other hand, the United Nations Human Rights Office reports has looked at 6 Israeli attacks in Gaza to look at the possibility of them being war crimes.
The report details 6 emblematic attacks involving the suspected use of GBU-31s, or 2,000-pound bombs, GBU-32, 1,000-pound bombs, and GBU-39s, 250-pound bombs, from the 9th of October to the 2nd of December 2023 on residential buildings, a school, refugee camps, and a market. The report concludes that these Israeli strikes indicate that the IDF may have repeatedly violated fundamental principles of the laws of war.
Despite world bodies raising their concerns regarding Israel repeatedly violating the laws of war in the conflict, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel will not leave Gaza until all hostages are returned.
He will not leave the Gaza Strip until we return all our hostages, both the living and the dead. We are doing this mission and also many other missions, and for now it's better to be silent about it.
In central and northern Gaza, several Israeli airstrikes have killed at least 14 people and wounded dozens of others, while tanks deepened their invasion into Rafah in the south of the Strip. And in Khan Yunis, a school sheltering families was damaged after an Israeli airstrike hit a neighboring building. With clashes and Israeli strikes continuing across Gaza, the temporary US pier aimed at boosting aid shipments has been reattached to the coast, and deliveries of humanitarian assistance have resumed to the war-ravaged Strip after the pier was temporarily removed due to poor sea conditions. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Moscow has been mulling possible changes to its nuclear doctrine.
Right, Shivan. The existing doctrine states Russia can use such weapons in response to a nuclear attack or conventional attack.
We know that a likely adversary is working on this. New elements related to lowering the threshold of use of nuclear weapons. In particular, explosive nuclear devices of extremely low power are being developed. In the West, there are ideas about the fact that such means of destruction could be used. And there is nothing particularly terrible about this. There may not be anything terrible, but we must pay attention to this. And we are. And this is connected with my statement about what we are thinking about possible changes in our strategies.
The Russian president has warned South Korea against sending weapons to Ukraine, saying it will be a big mistake. But he hasn't ruled out sending weapons to North Korea.
With regard to deliveries of lethal weapons to Ukraine for combat zones, this would be a very big mistake. I hope this doesn't happen.
Putin's remarks comes day after the Russian president signed a treaty with Kim Jong-un. The Russian president has accused NATO of creating a security threat for Russia in Asia. Meanwhile, NATO member Romania has announced that it will send a Patriot missile system to Ukraine. Remember, Romania has repeatedly called on its allies to increase their air defense support as Russia attacks its energy infrastructure.
Close on the heels of Putin's visit to Hanoi, US will send its top diplomat to Vietnam this week. The visit is said to emphasize on Washington's commitment to working with Vietnam to ensure a free and open Indo-Pacific.
Well, we're still on with Putin's historic state visit to Vietnam. Now, during a state visit to Vietnam, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he wanted to build a reliable security architecture in the Asia-Pacific region.
Now, the two countries signed 11 pacts on issues including energy. Although none of them were on the same level as the mutual defense agreement Russia signed with North Korea the day before. Putin's visit has drawn criticism from the United States and its allies, who treat the Russian leader as a pariah and have protested that he should not be given a stage on which he can defend Russia's war in Ukraine. Take a look at this next report.
Vietnam rolled out the red carpet for Russian President Vladimir Putin on Thursday in the capital, Hanoi. During the visit, now seen as a show of defiance to the West, Putin said he wants to build a, quote, reliable security architecture in the Asia-Pacific region. The two countries signed multiple agreements on issues including energy, although none of the 11 pacts were on the same level as the mutual defense agreement Russia signed with North Korea the day before. Vietnam's President To Lam said Vietnam will always consider Russia as one of its most important partners, and that Putin had contributed to peace and stability in the world. Russia's TASS news agency quoted Putin as saying the two countries shared an interest in, quote, developing a reliable security architecture in the region. During a news conference, he accused the NATO military alliance of creating a security threat for Russia in Asia. We see what is happening in Asia. A bloc system is being put together. NATO is already moving there to Asia as if to a permanent place of residence, he said. The US and its allies have criticized Putin's visit, saying he should not be given a stage on which to defend Russia's war in Ukraine. The Russian leader has an outstanding international criminal court warrant over alleged war crimes in Ukraine, which he denies. Neither Russia nor Vietnam are members of the court. The U.S. is Vietnam's top export market and upgraded diplomatic relations with the country last year. For its part, the U.S. State Department said a top diplomat will visit Vietnam this week to stress Washington's commitment to working with Hanoi.
Outgoing Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte on Thursday clinched the race to become the next head of NATO.
The path to Rutte's victory became clear once Romanian President Klaus Iohannis backed out of the competition for Europe's top military post.
Now, 57-year-old Mark Rutte is set to take charge from current NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg on the 1st of October as his term comes to an end. Rutte's takeover comes on a critical juncture when Russia's war against Ukraine has stretched the timeline. He also faces the challenge of former US President Donald Trump retaining his position this November as Joe Biden's approval ratings continue to take a dip.
Mark is a staunch Ukraine supporter who went out of power last year in Netherlands as his coalition government collapsed. He announced his retirement from politics before staking claim for the job. The governments of US, Britain, France and Germany, all of them favoured his candidacy, although he faced opposition from Turkey and Hungary.
The final obstacle was Johannes, whose unexpected candidacy had unsettled allies expecting an easy appointment for Rutte ahead of next month's NATO summit in Washington. Romania's Security Council announced on Thursday that Johannes had officially withdrawn and the country now supports Rutte.
US and South Korean air forces held air drills on Thursday.
And US AC-130J and South Korean KF-16 jet fighters conducted live-fire drills, firing GBU-12 laser-guided bombs and AGM-114 air-to-ground missiles at targets. Now, tensions on the Korean peninsula are at their highest point in years, with Russian President Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un signing a new agreement that requires both countries to use all available means to provide immediate military assistance in the event of war.
Moving on, former US President Donald Trump will have the final word in the first presidential debate, which is all set to take place next week. This after a coin flip to assess the podium placement and the order of the closing statements.
Now, Biden and Trump will be the only two candidates on the debate stage in Atlanta on the 27th of June. CNN, the host, required candidates to clear at least 15% of support in 4 polls and viable on enough state ballots to earn 270 delegates to participate in the forum. Speaking of the toss, the coin landed on tails, the Biden campaign's pick, and his campaign got to choose between selecting the president's podium position or the order of closing statements. They picked the president's standing position. Biden will stand on the right side of the stage from the viewer's perspective. Trump will be on the left.
With the choice of order of closing statement with the Trump's campaign, they decided that the former president would speak last, meaning that Biden will be the first to give his closing arguments. This time, the debates will feature a new set of rules. For starters, microphones will be muted throughout the debate, except when it's the contestant's turn to speak. There will also be no studio audience, unlike debates in the past. And the moderators will have more control. They have been allowed to use all tools at their disposal to enforce timing and ensure a civilized discussion takes place. 2020 election debates saw multiple interruptions and arguments, with moderators having difficulty in reining in Biden or Trump.
I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them.
And well, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
With 1 week to go to the first presidential debate, preparations are being made mostly logistically. President Biden's campaign won a coin toss for the upcoming CNN debate, choosing the right podium, positioning viewers' screens. However, this means that Donald Trump will get the final closing statements. Now, debate rules include muted microphones, no props, and 2 minutes for each candidate to answer questions. But campaigners are also preparing. President Biden is meeting advisors at Camp David, and Donald Trump is holding policy meetings and campaigning in Philadelphia. RFK Jr., running as an independent, didn't meet the qualification requirements and criticized his exclusion from the debate. While Donald Trump is leading in presidential polls in a number of battleground states, a recent Fox News poll found that President Biden is leading by a small margin. Susan Termani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
With less than 5 months to go for the US presidential elections, a recent poll survey has found about 20% of voters are undecided about the choice of their candidate.
Right, Shivan, the survey says that the voters are either mulling third-party options or are likely to not vote at all on November 5th. The poll suggests the undecided voters will be closely watching the first presidential debate to see how Biden and Trump, the two oldest ever contestants in a presidential race, will think on their feet during the debate on June 27th.
60% of undecided voters previously voted for Biden, but this time around they have partially or fully soured on him. Meanwhile, 40% voters are upset with Trump, but they do not consider Biden as an alternative.
Let's now take a look at the key poll issues in the US presidential polls. According to the latest poll, mental fitness, especially Biden's, is the key issue for the undecided voters. Biden's stewardship of the economy and his handling of inflation is also a hot topic this time around. Remember, the increase in consumer prices has been a sticking point for the voters. With the rise in inflation, immigration policies is yet another key poll issue, with several voters who supported Biden in 2020 now wanting him to address immigration during the debate. Biden has promised to reverse many of Trump's restrictive border policies when he took office in 2021. But somehow Biden has struggled with record numbers of migrants caught illegally crossing the US-Mexico border on his watch.
Trump's felony conviction in May is a factor for voters as well, who are unhappy with Biden and believe conviction disqualifies Trump. Now, in the face of opinion polls suggesting a win for the far right in France, Emmanuel Macron is urging voters not to choose the extremes, the left and right.
But while slamming them, he might have taken it too far. While talking about the left-wing coalition's manifesto, he said, and I'm quoting Macron here, "With the extreme left, it's 4 times worse. There is no more freedom. They will go back on the immigration law, and there are things that are completely farcical, like changing your gender at the town hall," unquote.
The last bit in that statement has raised some eyebrows. The left-wing coalition's program includes a proposal allowing the change of civil status in a town hall. They say changing gender would be possible by filing a request at the town hall. There was expected flack from the left, but Macron's remarks angered some of his own party members as well.
One of them said on social media, "For people trans, for people LGBTQ+, for everyone, we must reject all stigmatization in political discourse and advance rights. Under the current system, requests to change the gender indicated in legal documents must be made before a judge. While there is no obligation of having received gender-affirming surgery, one must prove that the sex indicated on your civil status does not correspond to that of your social life." And today is the 21st of June, International Day of Yoga. This year marks the 10th edition with the theme Yoga for Self and Society. And we're cutting across live to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is currently in Srinagar and is addressing the crowd there on World Yoga Day. Take a listen.
आकर्षण भी बढ़ रहा है, योग की उपयोगिता के संबंध में भी जन सामान्य कन्विंस हो रहा है। मैं विश्व में हर जगह जितने भी ग्लोबल लीडर से मिलता हूं, जहां भी जाता हूं, शायद ही कोई एक आध मिल जाएगा जो मेरे से योग की बात न की हो। दुनिया के सभी वरिष्ठ नेता जब भी मौका मिलता है मेरे से योग की चर्चा जरूर करते हैं और बड़ी जिज्ञासा से सवाल पूछते हैं। दुनिया के कितने ही देशों में योग डेली लाइफ का हिस्सा बन रहा है। मुझे याद है मैंने 2015 में तुर्कमेनिस्तान में योग सेंटर का उद्घाटन किया था। आज वहां योग बेहद पॉपुलर हो चुका है। तुर्कमेनिस्तान की स्टेट मेडिकल यूनिवर्सिटी में भी योग थेरेपी को शामिल किया गया है। सऊदी अरब ने तो योग को अपने एजुकेशन सिस्टम में भी शामिल किया है। मंगोलिया में भी मंगोलियन योग फाउंडेशन के तहत कई योग स्कूल चलाए जा रहे हैं। यूरोपियन देशों में भी योग का चलन तेजी से बढ़ा है। जर्मनी में आज करीब 1.5 करोड़ लोग योग प्रैक्टिशनर बन चुके हैं। आपको ध्यान होगा इसी साल भारत में फ्रांस की 101 साल की एक महिला योग टीचर को पद्मश्री अवार्ड दिया गया था। वो कभी भारत नहीं आई थी, लेकिन उन्होंने योग प्रचार के लिए अपना पूरा जीवन समर्पित कर दिया है। आज विश्व के बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशंस और यूनिवर्सिटीज में योग पर रिसर्च हो रहे हैं, रिसर्च पेपर पब्लिश हो रहे हैं। साथियों, बीते 10 वर्षों में योग का ये जो विस्तार हुआ है उससे योग से जुड़ी धारणाएं बदली हैं। योग अब सीमित दायरे से बाहर निकल रहा है। आज दुनिया एक नई योग इकोनॉमी को आगे बढ़ने में देख रही है। आप देखिए भारत में विश्व के
All right, that was the Indian Prime Minister who's addressing audiences in Srinagar. Of course, he's spoken about how widespread the message of yoga has gone in the last 10 years, ever since Yoga Day has been celebrated all across the world. We are going to be tracking all the developments coming in from the ground as people across the world, especially all over India, are taking to Yoga Day and taking to their practices in yoga, taking it very, very seriously.
Right, also on the other side, we will mark the World Yoga Day today. And like Shivan mentioned, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is leading the celebrations in India's Jammu and Kashmir. We will be tracking that on the other side of this short break.
Also on the other side, the BRICS influence is growing. While on one hand, Thailand has formally applied to join the group of emerging economies, Malaysia is also seeking support from Beijing to get membership. Stay tuned for this and a lot more on the other side of World DNA. We are slipping into a short break as of now. Come right back.
Proposed tax hikes in Kenya's Finance Bill 2024 causes concerns and outrage as companies and small businesses fear huge job losses, even as President William Rutte defends the controversial law. South African authorities are recruiting traditional healers in an attempt to tackle the stigma and reluctance of people to test for HIV. And meet South Africa's first black woman to lead and own an all-black orchestra. Watch World of Africa at these times, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
As Taylor Swift takes over the world,
First time that he saw me.
we explain the number game of the Eras Tour. Know how sequels, remakes and reboots have become the flavor of the season. And find out some rare facts about My Heart Will Go On singer Celine Dion. All this and much more with me, Isha Hanspal, at these times only on WION eClub.
This week on Take It Out, we tell you how the Indian government is planning to stop the menace of fraud calls. We show you a robot that can explore the challenging terrain of caves on the Moon and Mars. And we introduce you to some high-tech gadgets that can help you take better care of your pets. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
This week on the West Asia Post, tensions flare up between Lebanon's Hezbollah group and Israeli forces. Is a full-blown war on the horizon? The IDF is facing the heat for having prior intelligence about Hamas's October 7 attack. All this as protests and political turmoil once again surround the Israeli Prime Minister. Is Netanyahu only watching out for his political future? Also on the show, pilgrims on Hajj from all over the world face the brunt of a global heatwave. Watch the West Asia Post with me, Radi Francis, only on WION. World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching WION World is One with me, Rahisha and Shivan. We are, of course, tracking the 10th International Day of Yoga here on the show. We'll be tracking all of that and how the celebrations are taking place in India and across the world. But first, a quick check on the headlines.
Israel will not leave Gaza until all hostages are returned, says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after meeting officials from the Israeli security agency Shin Bet.
The temporary USPA aimed at boosting aid shipments to Gaza has been reattached to the coast and supply of humanitarian assistance have resumed, says the Pentagon. 21st of June, International Day of Yoga, and this year marks the 10th edition with the theme Yoga for Self and Society.
Well, the age-old practice of yoga, it represents harmony of mind and body and has gained immense popularity in the past decade itself, ever since the United Nations declared this date as a special day for yoga.
Well, one of the highlights of this year's celebration is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, where just a short while ago he has started off with the celebrations there in Srinagar.
Of course, these are visuals of soldiers doing different asanas there, and of course their canine friends are also joining along, so it is for everyone. It's been 10 years, Resha, and the way people all over the world are talking about yoga today, it is definitely a testament to how International Day of Yoga, a day signifying the relevance and importance of this age-old science, how it's been taken up all over the world.
Right, Shivan. Of course, this year's event underscores yoga's profound impact on young minds and bodies, and it also aims to unite thousands in the practice of yoga, promoting health and fitness. And as we can see the visuals on your screens right now, people from children, old age people performing yoga on a daily basis, as the world today marks the 10th edition of World Yoga Day. And for more on this, our correspondent Idris Lone is joining us live from Srinagar. And we're also being joined by Nikita Singh. She's joining us live from Kartavya Path here in India's national capital, New Delhi. Coming to you first, Idris, you're joining us live from Srinagar. Due to the rain there, the yoga program is now being held inside the Winter Hall. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to perform yoga with thousands of participants there. Take us through how the celebration looks like there in Srinagar.
Well, Rahesha, yes, rains did play a dampener for the main event, which was to be held in the lawns of the Sher-e-Kashmir International Convention Centre. There were around 5,000 to 6,000 people waiting since early morning today to be a part of the celebrations. But heavy rains and winds have played a dampener for the main event. That's why the event was shifted to the Winter Hall of the SKICC, where Prime Minister just finished his speech and congratulated not only the people from across the country, but people across the world on the 10th International Yoga Day. If we talk about Jammu and Kashmir, and especially as Srinagar city today, a three-tier security system has been put in place all across Srinagar, especially the venue where the main function is being held at the moment. Prime Minister, along with hundreds of students, especially from every district of the Kashmir Valley, have come in to join the yoga celebrations at the SKICC Winter Hall now. Some of them disappointed that they couldn't be a part of the main event, as the Winter Hall cannot really could not has the capacity of actually having around 5,000 to 6,000 people inside it. And that's one of the reasons some of the students did seem very disappointed while as they were leaving the venue. On the other hand, the whole of Kashmir Valley has been put on high alert ahead of the Prime Minister's visit. Prime Minister at the moment in SKICC. After that, he will be attending a meeting with the Lieutenant Governor as well as with the top officials of Jammu and Kashmir. He already inaugurated developmental projects worth rupees 1,500 crores yesterday evening in Srinagar only. Right. Most of them related to roads, yes, railways as well as infrastructure. So people were really eagerly waiting to be a part of the main yoga event, but rain's playing a dampener, so only few hundred will be able to actually be a part of the main celebration. But all across the Kashmir Valley as well as Ladakh, we are getting visuals that many programs have been held all across the Union Territory as well of Jammu and Kashmir as well as Ladakh.
Absolutely, Idris. We were also seeing visuals of the Prime Minister doing different asanas as you were speaking. I'd like to now just shift focus to New Delhi. Of course, Nikita, you've been there at Kartavya Path since the morning. I see a lot of young faces and elder faces also behind you. It's a mix of all age groups standing behind you. And isn't it quite a good morning to start with? Now, the sun is not as bright as it is, and it's a nice cloudy morning. Talk to us about the mood on ground.
It's a great morning to start with, Shivin. In fact, like I said before, we've been really, really fortunate and lucky. The sun has been really kind to us today. And I'm lucky also to be joined by this lovely group of ladies who seem to be very energized after the yoga session. So, ladies, how was the yoga session?
Amazing!
And do you feel energized?
Yes!
Well, the excitement is definitely brimming in the air here. I would like to first ask Miss Bindya, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Miss Bindya, how you're a yoga student for the past couple of...
I'm a yoga student. She's our teacher. So,
how has your experience been as a budding yoga student?
So, I mean, my personal experience is like yoga gives us very good and very nice health benefits. So if you are ill or something like that, your sickness and anything will gone. It's like a kind of a medicine. You don't magic medicine actually. So this is a very good experience. I mean, you feel inside out both beautiful and look good also at the same time. So it is very nice experience.
Lovely to hear that, Miss Bindya. Thank you so much. So Miss Ritu, she is the yoga instructor for this entire group of ladies, and I'm sure you're really proud of their dedication and how seriously they take up yoga and how seriously and dedicatedly they have been doing all the yoga asanas here today. What do you have to say about that?
First of all, good morning to all. Happy International Yoga Day. And I am proud of my team because all age group you can see here, okay, from 40 to 65 plus. I think she's the oldest one, youngest you can say, not oldest one. And all are doing very, very great. She can do any kind of yoga, not the advanced one, but yeah, the basic one she's doing wonderful, excellently. Okay, each and every person doing very great and enjoying the yoga.
And what do you have to say about the year-on-year growth of International Day of Yoga, globally and nationally? How proud are you as an instructor to see yoga grow so magically?
Because yoga root is from India, okay? And everyone doing not in this India country, out of country also. So I feel very, very proud that each and every person doing yoga and see the magic of India also.
Nikita, thanks so much for getting us all those updates from Kartavya Path. And of course, it is a cloudy morning as you enjoy it outdoors, and you'll be back in office soon. But of course, there'll be a lot to catch up with you when you're back here. Thank you so much for getting us all those updates. Thank you so much, Idris, for getting us and braving it through the rain and getting us the updates from Srinagar.
But moving on to other global stories, Thailand has formally applied to join the BRICS group of emerging economies. Malaysia is also seeking China's support for its bid to join BRICS.
Now, this is a testament to the growing influence of BRICS. Originally, Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. The group has expanded exponentially with several new members in 2024. Thailand hopes to become the first Southeast Asian nation in the bloc to join BRICS. Thailand's motivations are multifaceted. The country seeks to diversify its trade and investment partnerships, potentially mitigating reliance on traditional allies. Membership in BRICS could also offer access to the new Development Bank, a financial institution established by the group, and potentially lead to a future BRICS currency that challenges the dominance of the US dollar. Thailand is also pursuing membership in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD.
Well, at the upcoming BRICS summit in Russia, leaders will focus on expanding the use of a common currency and promoting local currency trade among member nations. This initiative aims to reduce reliance on the US dollar and strengthen economic ties within the bloc. Putin recently highlighted how the share of ruble in Russian trade has jumped to 40%.
It is no secret, of course, that the reliability and trust in Western payment systems have been thoroughly undermined, and by Western countries themselves. In this regard, I note that last year the share of settlements for Russian exports in the so-called toxic currencies of unfriendly states halved. The share of ruble in export and import is growing. It is now approaching 40%.
With BRICS representing nearly half of the world's population and a significant share of global trade, the summit's outcomes could significantly reshape the global economic landscape by promoting a more multipolar world order. All right, next up, let's take a look at all the developments coming in from technology. Cutting-edge AI and virtual reality technology have enabled school children in the UK to see and talk to Holocaust survivors. This technology lets students ask almost any question they can think of. The program, called Testimony 360, People and Places of the Holocaust, uses AI to determine the meaning of each question and find the correct response from a vast database of pre-recorded answers. According to the developers of the program, it is becoming increasingly vital to immortalize the experiences and lessons of Holocaust survivors as their numbers dwindle. Among those at the program's launch in London was 94-year-old Manfred Goldberg. He is the first survivor to feature in Testimony 360 and spent 5 days recording his answers.
It has become crystal clear that by far the most powerful and effective educational impact is achieved by listening to a talk from a survivor in the first person. And as I gave more thought to it, it appeared to me that this would be ideal, because if they want to hear words from a survivor, that is the way to do it. It bordered on magic as far as I was concerned.
The technology was manufactured in response to a rise in reports of anti-Semitism across Europe following the attack by Hamas gunmen on southern Israel on October 7th. Well, China's gaming giant Tencent is removing its hit mobile game Dungeon and Fighter from selected Android app stores as its contracts have now expired. Tencent has not specified which app stores are affected.
However, local media outlets have reported that the affected stores include those of Huawei, Oppo and Vivo. Game developers in China have long had a strained relationship with distributors over revenue sharing issues as mobile games become increasingly popular. Tencent had a similar dispute back in 2021 when Huawei removed several of its mobile games from its app store due to a revenue sharing disagreement.
As per reports, the United Kingdom has the highest number of generative AI startups in Europe and Israel. The report by venture capital firm Acel analyzed 221 generative AI startups. It found that 30% of these were founded in the UK, 14% in Germany and 13% in Israel. Gen AI is a type of AI that can create text, images, videos or other data. In 2023, generative AI startups globally raised over $25 billion in funding. According to Acel, this amount is expected to rise to around $45 billion in 2024. Perennial favourites India have begun their Super 8-stage journey with a commanding victory over Afghanistan.
Well, Surya Kumar Yadav's 53 of 28 balls and 6 wickets shared between Jasprit Bumrah and Arshdeep Singh helped the 2007